This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for November 1st, 2025. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. A fitting settlement. $230 million is no small sum. However, this is the bill that Donald Trump gave to the Justice Department. After endless lawfare where he had one persecutor,
don't you mean prosecutor? No!
After another, President Trump had to pay unholy amounts of money for his defense. If any other person was targeted by law enforcement without evidence, or just for normal lawfare, said person should be justly compensated, and since no one is above the law, not even the DOJ, restitution should be paid. Where this money is going to come from is anyone's guess. Probably the same place where the Democrats are getting the money to investigate the construction of a ballroom. Now, speaking of investigations, let us examine a just investigation. Finding the fascist funding, FBI Director Kash Patel claims that the department is closing in on finding the funding for Antifa. As much as the fake news would have you believe that this organization does not exist, the burned buildings and destroyed livelihoods would beg to differ. He has also brought charges against the alleged Antifa members who targeted immigration and customs enforcement officers. Director Patel believes that the funding may be international, which means that the money could be coming from anywhere, but my bet is on George Soros, as well as Hillary Clinton's friend Vladimir Putin, and because it bears repeating,
just follow the money.
Our nation must be defended against all enemies, foreign and domestic. While the FBI is taking out terrorists domestically, the military is taking out foreign threats. Drug dealers blown up. There are a handful of people in this world whom I have no sympathy for whatsoever. One of those is drug dealers. Those who bring fentanyl and other like drugs into the country. These people must be held accountable for their crimes. The beauty of declaring these people terrorists is that the military has more leeway in taking them out.
Please, consider the phone.
For years, Democrats and Republicans have given massive and unconstitutional powers not only to the legislature, but to bureaucrats and to the office of the president as well. Both pretended that the other was a part of the problem, and then fixed nothing so that the other side would not target them. Quite a slick setup if you ask me. Now, ever since candidate Trump came around, both Democrats and rhinos have been worried about him using the very power that they gave his office over the decades. That is, in a word, the same powers that were authorized after 9/11 to go after terrorists are being invoked here. These drug boats are being taken out in international waters. And as of this recording, our ships are parked by Venezuela as a show of force. Venezuela and the rest of these countries have a huge market for drug dealers. If their governments would just crack down on these drug cartels, we would not be in this situation. They try either bringing them across the border, which is being locked down on both sides, or they can try bringing them in on a boat and risk getting blown up. Either way, I have no sympathy. I have absolutely no sympathy for terrorists. Although I do have some sympathy for the lazy. Reining in, rogue legislators. A short while ago, Democratic lawmakers in Texas decided to be derelict in their duties and flee to the most gerrymandered state in the union to protest imaginary gerrymandering. Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton are not taking it lightly. The Texas Supreme Court is presently considering whether or not to take a case brought forward by the governor and state attorney general, which will hold these legislators accountable. I for one doubt that anything will come of this, but I choose not to give up hope. They had to know that all they were doing was delaying the inevitable, and just made fools of themselves in the process. If the Texas Supreme Court takes the case, and if the case goes in favor of the plaintiffs, these legislators could be ousted. There is a way to fight things legally. But doing a show just for votes makes the party that cannot even define a woman look even worse. Now, speaking of legislators, let us go to the federal level. Corrupt doctors fund Democrats. As of this recording, the Democrats still have the government shut down. We all know that the Democrats are keeping the Schumer shutdown going so that they can potentially give Medicare to illegals. However, a DC insider claims that there is something else going on here. We know that Democrats like Senator Elizabeth Warren, who were, and still are, the biggest opponents of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., received huge amounts of money from the medical industrial complex. Wall Street Apes claims that these same companies are financing the senators so that they keep the Schumer shutdown going. We all know that the Obamacare subsidies are potentially on the chopping block. If the government reopens and the Democrats have to debate ideas, the subsidies might be gone forever. Therefore, if the senators are being paid with dark money, they have an incentive to keep the government closed indefinitely. And that is just despicable. Now, I must add this legal disclaimer. I cannot prove that the payments were made, but I cannot disprove that either. The fact remains that the Democrats could open everything back up. However, they care more about the illegals than the furloughed federal employees. Now, in my experience, those who have no ethics themselves are the first ones to turn a blind eye to the corruption of others. However, President Trump's administration is not. SBA Takes Action. Kelly Loeffler of the Small Business Administration has stated that ATI government solutions will be investigated. Recall that this is the company which James O'Keefe via O'Keefe Media Group got to admit that they were manipulating the anti-whitist system. Granted, those are my words, but I digress. The 8A Business Development Program gives special treatment to minority businesses. As such, non-minority businesses get a minority business, such as ATI, to bid on their behalf. Furthermore, not only is ATI going to be investigated, the entire 8A program is going to be investigated, because crony capitalists and corrupt bureaucrats are like roaches. For every one that you see, there are probably 1,000 that you do not see. Yes, I realize that I just compared people to roaches, but they are using my money for criminal acts, and so I do not care. However, the reason that I emphasize that these are people is that people commit crimes. Some people steal money as a business practice, and other people steal money as a means of survival. Stealing from Wal-Mart, President Trump used tariff money to pay the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, for an extra month during the Schumer shutdown. This means that the Democrats had another month to sign on to the continuing resolution, but they are still more concerned about giving Medicare to illegals than keeping the government open. Now, the beneficiaries of this system are threatening to walk out with groceries which they have not paid for, and to even have someone there to protect them as they walk out with their pilfered goods. I am all for charity, but government handouts are not charity. If liberals cared about the poor, they would contribute their own money. However, that side of the political aisle, more often than not, just wants to raise taxes instead. It is conservatives who generally donate more to charity because it is about a worldview. The way that I see it, if you have money to get your nails done or buy a Gucci purse, you can buy food. I cannot tell you how many people I have seen on these handout programs who also use their own money to buy alcohol and tobacco. Use your own money for food, and then if there is something left over, indulge in your sin. SNAP is for food, not junk food and junk habits. Now, hopefully the people who kept the government closed will be shunned by the working class. A major union has already shunned them. As such, I take you to Washington, D.C. Unions turn on Schumer. It is no secret that Democrats love unions and vice versa. Well, technically the Democrats use the unions to further their own ends, but that is another topic for another day. For years they have been granting unions special status, such as forcing people to join said unions. Now it seems that one union is biting the hand that feeds it. The American Federation of Government Employees, or AFGE, is calling on the Democrats to pass a clean continuing resolution, like the one that the Republicans have offered. This will put all of them back to work right away. This union represents 82,000 federal workers in Washington, D.C. and overseas. As I reported last month, at least 4,000 federal employees were fired. Naturally, that is a small number and a drop in the bucket. However, that was potentially 5% of the workforce represented by the AFGE. Democrats chose to close the government. And after a month, they still only have themselves to blame. As much as I find cronies eating their own hilarious, it is funnier to see that Democrats have no standards. Opposing a woman of color. Politicians like Barack Obama are the type of people who judge by melanin over merit, except when it is convenient. The Democrats would not give Thomas Sowell, Dr. Ben Carson, or Winsome Earl Sears the time of day. Why would they? After all, these people are not staying on the Democrat plantation. When Kamala Harris was running her campaign, if you could even call it that, former President Obama came to support her. While their policies were substantially aligned, the main reason that he brought up was that she was a woman of color. In a world where a man can just claim to be a woman, and a person can claim to be any ethnicity, that description means little. But I digress. Moving on, when it comes to the race for governor in Virginia, Obama came not to support the woman of color, but her opponent. He put his support behind Abigail Spanberger, a former CIA agent, over Winsome Earl Spears, a veteran. He, apparently, has to support the deep state operative rather than a hero. His support for minority candidates ends where their policies begin. Conservatives, on the other hand, judge the person's character. That is a very different standard. Now, we all know that Obama not only has no consistent standards, but never had any consistent standards. And now we see the same thing applies to Bill Gates. Bill Gates ends fear-mongering. Like most climate activists, Bill Gates preaches carbon neutrality, but flies around in a private jet and has multiple mansions. Meanwhile, that is actually the subject of the first episode of Season 4 of Tuttle Twins, airing in a few days. However, Bill Gates has realized how much of a moneymaker artificial intelligence is. Despite the carbon footprint it generates, he now says that climate change is not an existential threat. I'm sure that Greta Thunberg is most upset.
How dare you?
Moving on, this just proves what the conservative side has been saying all along. The only thing green about the climate agenda is the money that it makes.
Just follow the money.
Now, playing devil's advocate for a moment, perhaps there is a middle ground. Nuclear energy produces so much power and is basically carbon neutral. Modern nuclear reactors are so safe that we have nothing to worry about. Long gone are the days of Chernobyl, built by inferior communists. Here are the days of energy independence, built on American capitalism. Gates has grown a lot. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.